today's video, I'd like to talk about capital stagnation. And this is just a term that I constructed to as a way to look at the root cause of what's happening in the market today, what's happening with real estate, what's happening with Bitcoin, what's happening with all these things that are have high valuations. And I feel inflation and all these other discussion points, I feel potentially this could all be side effects or superficial aspects of things that we measure without understanding the root cause. So, I mean, with inflation, for example, we can't plan for it and find the best case when to use inflation and when to use deflation. Rather, we just go out in the world, we do things, and then we measure it and get a feedback loop to understand, hey, are we inflated or not? Don't know. So there's a lot of theories around to why we're inflated, etc. But the argument with this video is to suggest that is all side effects or superficial, and there's a deeper root cause. So this video is an attempt to just evaluate and consider if there is a root cause to all of this. Hence the term capital stagnation. So I wanted to go through some differences between stagnation and generativity. And if you look at Erikson, he has a number of stages that we go through in life. And through the stage between the ages of 40 and 60, we go through this stage where we experience a dichotomy between stagnation and generativity. So I'll compare those here. I have them on the screen. And then once I compare them, I'm going to go through some topics. And as I go through the topics, I'll relate back to this dichotomy. And hopefully in the end, with a conclusion, we can understand if there is such a thing as capital stagnation. So let's go through stagnation first. And so stagnation is what we experience when we feel disconnected or uninvolved. And I mean, we might proclaim to everybody else that we're highly connected, and we might do things where we make ourselves and others believe we're connected, but deep down we might feel disconnected. And what's interesting is the more disconnected you might feel, the more connected you might act as if. So, which is quite interesting, but I don't want to get too much into the psychosocial underpinnings of what this means. I'll just go over some characteristics. So some characteristics of stagnation are being self-centered, failing to get involved with others, not taking an interest in productivity, no efforts to improve the self, and placing one's concerns over another. Now, this list does not mean that we get to take this and point fingers or scapegoat or judge others. It's only meant to be introspective, and it's only meant to be personally a way to understand ourselves. So let's compare this one side of the spectrum to the other side of the spectrum, which is generativity. With generativity, this refers to making your mark, and it's about it's about caring for others, contributing, and accomplishing, making the world a better place. Let's go through some characteristics of generativity. So these are making commitments to other people, developing relationships with family, mentoring others, and contributing to the next generation. I'd like to talk about the last point, contributing to the next generation. Just a quick point. It's quite interesting that I just see the younger generation actually resembling a lot of generativity. It seems that they're maturing faster, and they're taking on this aspect of these wonderful things, and just makes me wonder, are they doing this because of the lack of the older generation reflecting this? Now, again, we're not trying to blame others or finger point. It's just very likely that some people just might not understand what they're going through, and they might not be able to reflect. So the idea here is to have a discussion so people can introspect and understand. Okay, so with that, I'll go through some topics, and I'll just compare through this dichotomy, through this continuum between stagnation and generativity, to evaluate if we have such a thing as capital stagnation as a root cause for everything. So let's talk about the valuation of the markets and the valuation of Bitcoin. So just a quick note on that, just to set the stage of the other discussion points. Right now in the market, real estate valuation is very high. The stock market valuation is very high, and the Bitcoin valuation is very high. So the main argument here is when we have high valuation, what that does is it results in high expectations. And when we have high expectations, that results, psychologically, it results to a lot of pressure on the psyche. The pressure is what possibly is preventing people from understanding and introspecting on what's happening. So my previous discussion about generativity, suggesting maybe some people aren't able to experience it, it very well might be because of the pressure. The pressure might cloud them from being able to step back and realize what they're going through. So with that, I wanted to talk about sentiment. With valuation, we talk about sentiment. Not the sentiment analysis that is based on a superficial measurement after the fact. I'm talking about the sentiment that people carry day to day with themselves, and then how that results in the other sentiment analysis that becomes a superficial measurement. So sentiment. So people who are engaged in these high valuation assets, how do they feel? Do they feel generativity? For example, do they feel they're contributing in some way that helps them feel empowered, to help them feel they're changing the world? If something external to them is already highly valued outside of themselves, well, how do they feel they're changing the world when they're contributing to something else that is valued beyond them with high expectations? So that's just, I'm using a play on this, and it's probably not fair to suggest this. So I'll just go with some general concepts of sentiment. So let's say you are engaged with these high value assets. Are you likely to invest for the long term and let that capital become realized? Or are you like a water wheel in these assets? A water wheel, meaning do you just trickle in the water and pull out the water cup by cup, slowly pulling out what you can out of these high valued assets? Because you're just participating in something that's already highly valued. So are you a water wheel going in, participating, getting out, and then waiting for your next turn to get back in, and then getting out a little bit more? And does everybody have their own water wheels? So that's just a suggestion of sentiment putting pressure on capital, which is creating capital stagnation. So let's talk about redirecting capital. So with redirection of capital, and we have high expectations, do we not then, when we redistribute that capital, do we not put a lot of pressure on anywhere that capital goes? So for example, with innovation, when we redirect capital into innovation, does that not mean if we have high expectations, we expect our innovations to become magical, if not better, or if not less, at least provide us something in the short term with value? And the idea then is, do we do a lot of talking points on innovation to show all the benefits? And then with that, is it likely that we're going to actually reveal the hidden costs associated with those innovations? So redirecting capital seems that when you have a lot of higher expectations because of the valuation, redirecting that capital puts pressure on anything it touches. The suggestion here is anything the capital touches, it also becomes stagnated, like innovation. I have an argument in another video that innovation is stagnant. Reason why is because we don't understand the hidden costs. The hidden costs aren't realized until tomorrow. So today we experience the wonders of innovation, and then when those innovations are finally put to the test, tomorrow we actually deal with the hidden costs. And I'm not just talking expenses from a business perspective, I'm talking hidden costs in a variety of factors. So what this does, when we have high valuations in capital, it puts a lot of pressure on that capital. And what happens in organizations most likely is we tend to have more aggressive people involved in protecting that capital because they are the ones who have all the knowledge to know what to do with it. And so they tend to do a lot of talking and they tend to do a lot of protecting. And so these highly aggressive people, they're very extroverted. In a way, they become bullies to the knowledge workers in an organization who can actually utilize that capital. So what happens in an organization when you have a lot of capital with a plan to use it, the aggressive people come up front and then they tend to be a bully to the actual knowledge workers who can utilize the capital. Thus you get capital stagnation. I wanted to talk about job satisfaction. So it's quite likely with job satisfaction that we have people that are experiencing stagnation even if they're highly generative. So let's say we have people who are highly engaged mentoring others, they're contributing as much as they can, they're developing relationships, but they come away with being highly engaged on one side of the spectrum and experiencing an inverse. Is that because of the organization? Is it because of the stagnation of capital? What is it? Now, we don't want to point fingers or blame or quickly judge others too much and suggest that we have a quick answer. So this is not about having a quick answer. It's just about understanding and wondering and being and just being able to navigate this concept. So with job satisfaction, do we have people who are most likely to leave an organization, or is there flight risk because they feel they're experiencing stagnation when they don't understand why? And on the other side of the spectrum, could there be people in an organization who are surrounded by people who are highly generative? Could those people in an organization who are being highly stagnant, while they're actually engaged stagnatively, are they experiencing these factors of generativity? So aside from all that, I just wanted to give you some benefits of what you experience from generativity. So aside from how you feel, maybe with regards to the organization or environment that you're in, there are some positive effects of generativity. So here I'm trying to suggest we should all be more generative, regardless of what psyche outcome that we experience. So you actually have greater health, you have greater fulfillment, and you have better relationships, and you actually have better productivity. So I just wanted to bring that up to kind of end the video with some positive notes. But that's just more of an intrapersonal perspective of reviewing this continuum that I have beside me that we just reviewed. But the idea here, high level, is to talk about capital stagnation, and it's just a term to suggest that there might be a root cause. And so what do we do? How do we move forward? So it's quite possibly we might not have to do anything so dramatic. We don't need to turn off the taps with capital. We don't need to point fingers or have somebody take responsibility that we feel should. What we could possibly do is have a discussion with each other or introspect ourselves to understand what's happening psychosocially, and maybe having those discussions and understandings. And also on top of that, just be confident that if you are acting in a generative sense, that if you are mentoring others, that is very important. I have a colleague, actually, she's a high executive, and she left her job to start a business, to focus and be a mentor, people leaving university. I think that's wonderful and so inspiring. And I feel we're getting to a time where a lot more people are going to be participating more generative, regardless of how their psyche might give them some feedback that might feel hardening. We very well need to be hopeful that we're always going to be going into a good direction. So it's always good to understand what we're going through. With that, capital stagnation. Is it a term that deserves a notation? Is this something that can be defined, or is this just a fun video? Who knows? Regardless, I hope you enjoyed the video and have a great day. Thank you. Bye.